What is the deeper meaning of this pandemic, of this global crisis? You follow your heart in how you see this. Maybe there is a deeper meaning. What is beneath those layers of just what we see? It is the symptoms we have that we don't pay attention to, or the symptoms that are controlling our life. To really stop just focusing on what is happening outside of us and to really shine the light within us and to practice it a lot more than we were before. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Whole Wellness Method video. I'm Lida Sportel at the upcoming lidashealing.com and founder of the Whole Wellness Method. And in this video, I want to explore something with you that's a little bit of a deeper discussion. I want to explore with you what is the deeper meaning of this pandemic, of this global crisis that we are all going through. And while there are many different meanings that each and every one of us can have on an individual level, there is also that collective meaning that we can all gather from this. And each person can have a different idea of what the meaning, the deeper meaning could be. Some people might disagree that there is a deeper meaning, and they might not think that there is a deeper meaning. So you follow your heart in how you see this. Maybe there is a deeper meaning for you, maybe there isn't. Maybe you can see the global deeper meaning, but not the individual deeper meaning. Maybe it's the other way around. However it is, just sit with whatever comes for you. What I want to do is offer you what I feel is the deeper meaning. That does not mean it is the truth for everyone. It could help you, it might not benefit you in any way. So I want you again to filter everything I'll be sharing with you and see if it resonates with you. So it is a question I've been asking myself for the last couple months that this has been going on already, and I've been just wondering, what is the deeper meaning of it all? I mean, I always like to think of things in terms of what is the deeper meaning of this and that and that. In this particular situation, I was really asking that question and just pondering on it, like what is this whole thing about? And I've had a few different ideas of what this could be about, and I've been listening to some wonderful practitioners and doctors and scientists and energy healers and spiritual people and psychologists and neuroscientists and just all kinds of different amazing human beings that are offering us an understanding of what the heck is this, right? Like, what is beneath just the crisis? What is beneath those layers of just what we see? What is beneath what we just feel with our senses? What is beneath what we listen to in the news, or all the ideas that everybody has about this thing? What is beneath that? What's hiding in those deeper layers? What is that deeper meaning? So again, as I was sitting with this question, it started becoming more and more clear to me as to how that translates for me. And I've been sharing that with my clients and my followers, and it seems to be that some people are resonating with this. And I will share it with you. I will go a little bit deeper into this here, and then I will continue this conversation a lot more in depth inside the course, Getting Through the Coronavirus Crisis with You program, because it is a deeper conversation, but I do want in this video to get it started. So I have come up with 3 different meanings, if you will, of this whole situation, and they're deeper meanings, meaning it's not just what we're dealing with on the surface. And they happen to be the 3 pillars of the Whole Wellness Method. It's the program and the method that I have designed and that I've been talking about for years. And it's the physical pillar, it's the psychological pillar, and it's the spiritual pillar. And it's what, to me, is wholeness, whole wellness. And it's when we combine the physical, the psychological, and the spiritual. And so I realized the meaning, the deeper meaning of this whole crisis is all these three pillars. There's a deeper meaning in terms of the physical pillar, and that is about really our health. It is really about the way we approach our bodies. It is the way, the relationship we have with our bodies. It is the state of our health. It is the symptoms we have that we don't pay attention to, or the symptoms that are controlling our lives. So I'll explain more on that in a minute. So that's the physical pillar. And then there's the psychological pillar, which is this whole crisis is really a wake-up call for us to turn within, to really stop just focusing on what is happening outside of us, and to really shine the light within us, and to look at those deeper issues and triggers and problems and struggles that we've had on a mental emotional level, and to really start working on those. So I'll go deeper into this in a minute as well. And the third deeper meaning that has come up for me is the spiritual pillar meaning. And that is, it, no matter what spiritual path or religious path or no path you're following, there is a concept of oneness and a concept of sameness that I want to talk about a lot more. That this is really, we might have heard the concept of oneness before, but I feel like right now we are really called to embody that concept a lot more and to practice it a lot more than we were before. So I will dive into that as well in this video. And then, like I said, inside the program, I will be devoting a lot more time on each and every one of these things for those of you that want to go a little bit deeper, because this is a conversation that for some people is very interesting and for some others not so much. So I want to respect that. So now let's start with the first meaning, which is the physical pillar meaning, which is our bodies. So in terms of the physical pillar, and the deeper meaning of this whole crisis being to start to have a different conversation and a different relationship with our bodies and our health. So what does that mean? To me, it is about exploring, first of all, where you've been so far. Have you been one to kind of ignore your body and just push through the pain, push through the symptoms, or just managing your symptoms with just medications or other ways that suppress the symptoms so you don't feel them, so you can just keep doing what you need to be doing? If that's what you've been doing, then you haven't really been attending to your body. You have been trying to avoid dealing with what your body is trying to tell you. Maybe you are one who has accepted that I just got to live with these symptoms. My doctor said it's part of having this chronic condition. I just got to deal with it. Or my doctor said it's part of aging. I'm just getting older. I just have to accept it. Or maybe I think, it runs in my family. My dad and mom had the same thing, and it's in my genetics. There's nothing I can do about it. If that's been kind of your story, I want to invite you to start exploring that and start challenging that, because we know in functional medicine that that story is the old paradigm, and we are really seeing the results with the new paradigm, which is that we get to the root cause of all these symptoms, and we don't have to accept a miserable life with symptoms, and we don't have to just suppress the symptoms. We can look at the root cause, what's causing them, and then not have these symptoms. So that's a whole other discussion on functional medicine and root cause medicine, which is something I'll have in different videos. But I feel like this pandemic is really a big wake-up call for us, because we see that the medical model, the conventional medical model, is not, it is doing its best to help us, and it is saving some lives, but for the most part, a lot of people are dying and they're not able to support us. And the hospitals and the health workers are overwhelmed. So, without getting into the whole medical industry and what's behind it, we are just seeing that even in acute healthcare, where we would say in functional medicine that the conventional medical model is the best for acute conditions. Anything that's acute, you need to go to the conventional medical model. Anything that is more chronic, you need to look into functional medicine and more integrative medicine. Well, now we are having an acute situation and we are not seeing that the conventional medical model can even support us in that, in the acute care. So it raises a red flag as to where are we going with all this. And to me, it's instead of looking outside of us and saying, well, the conventional medical model is failing us and there's all this politics behind it and there's all these different things going on, and we can go off on that, or we can look within and really explore, what have I been doing for my health? Have I just been listening to what the doctor tells me or what everybody else is saying, and that there's not much I can do? Or have I started to really take my health in my own hands, and I've started to take responsibility for even the most minor little symptom, or even before I have any symptoms? Have I really loved my body enough? Have I really done all that I can to tune in to my body and see what it needs, to give it what it needs, and to remove what it doesn't need? Because we sometimes treat our bodies like it's our worst enemy. We don't care for our bodies. Or then we got the other spectrum of people who obsess over their bodies and they're all over just, being healthy and exercising and all these different things, which could be another form of distortion. So what is that middle ground where we're really approaching our bodies in a kind, loving way? We're in tune with what our body needs, and we use natural medicine, the wisdom of natural medicine, and the wisdom that our body has within, the natural healing force that Hippocrates said thousands of years ago, that we have within us a natural healing force. That's the only force we need to get well and to heal. So how about we start taking responsibility for our health in a gentle and kind way, not in a forceful way, and start looking at what are those little steps I can start taking right now to feel that I am really attending to my self-care. I'm really attending without having all these excuses that we've had before. Because before we had excuses like, there's no time to take care of my body. There's all these different things I gotta do. Now all of a sudden we're presented with, for most of us at least, more time in our hands. There's been excuses as to, um, I don't need to take care of my health. I'm fine. And now we're saying we're all scared for our health. We're all feeling so vulnerable because if we were attending to our health and we knew what inflammation is, and we knew how to protect our immune system, and we knew how to have a strong body, then we wouldn't be so afraid right now. And all these people that are dying, that have all these chronic health conditions, these pre-existing conditions, which are all chronic health conditions, had they been working on those health conditions prior, they didn't know. They didn't know to how to work on these conditions. But if we all knew how to work on all these conditions at a root cause level, then perhaps this wouldn't be happening at such a large scale right now. And so to me, it is about really turning our focus from how we've been approaching medicine, which is I have this, then therefore I need to take this, to really looking beneath the layers, beneath what is apparent, and doing that paradigm shift, which is what I talk about in my functional medicine videos, about the paradigm shift in terms of the medical model and how we approach health in general. And there's a lovely, lovely quote that I use a lot from Buckminster Fuller that says, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete." So it's not about fighting what the current medical model is. We need the current medical model. It's very helpful on so many different levels, but it's not able to save us. It's not able to help us. We feel a little betrayed by it in some ways. So yes, it's very helpful for many different things, but it's not about proving it wrong or right. It's about saying that there is another model, there's another paradigm we need to introduce that can help us move through these challenging times and whatever it is that follows in our future. That now this is a huge wake-up call that it is time on an individual level, because we're not going to try to change the model in terms of the global medical model or the US medical model. We are going to start on an individual level. And that means that we're starting this new approach, this new outlook on what it means to take care of my health. And I will offer many videos regarding that physical pillar of what it needs or what it means to take care of my own health, and to feel that I am the one controlling my health and I'm the one that's nurturing that natural healing force that my body has. And so when we tune into that, then we're all forming a new model of healthcare. And in that way, we might see that the old model, maybe it's not needed as much, maybe it's needed in some areas and it's amazing for some areas, but it's not, it doesn't have to be what is the rule for every single thing that we need help with. So the message for me, the deeper meaning for me in all this crisis is, in terms of the physical pillar, is let's use this crisis as a launching pad, as a motivating force for us to start taking care of our health and start to look into the ways that are more natural, that are supporting our bodies more naturally, and ways that are respecting the body's natural healing force, which means giving the body what it needs and removing what is interfering with the body's ability to heal. So again, I will be sharing a lot more on that subject because it is my passion and it is something I have a lot to share with you about. But now let's move on into the second pillar, which is the deeper meaning of this crisis in terms of the psychological pillar, the psychology of ourselves. Opportunity for us to heal our minds and our hearts. In those moments is where the biggest growth and the biggest healing can happen. See the opportunity that was in there, hidden somewhere. Paradox is using something that seems so negative, and this pandemic is like, well, close all the doors, you can't go anywhere. You have to really open that door inward, go deeper into these aspects, and to help you heal a lot deeper into all these different things. I really feel that this crisis is an opportunity for us to heal our minds and our hearts. And I know it seems a little paradoxical at times that in the midst of the worst situations, in the midst of crises, in the midst of things in our lives that seem to be the hardest things we've had to deal with, that in those moments is where the biggest growth and the biggest healing can happen. And I don't know, but maybe you can think of your life and times that you've had to go through some really, really hard experiences, some really challenging situations that you maybe have thought that you wouldn't be able to handle. And looking back on those moments, see the growth that you've gathered from it. See the strength that you found within yourself from these experiences. see the opportunity that was in there, hidden somewhere, for you to become who you are now. And I know these are concepts we've probably have heard before, but I think right now this is no different. This situation right now is really triggering a lot of people at a deep, deep level. I've been talking a lot to my clients. It's a hard time for a lot of people, and all their deepest fears are resurfacing right now. Because whether I have different videos on what those deeper fears are, and the deeper traumas. Like for a lot of people, there's trauma that's been resurfaced right now. There's a collective trauma happening. There's a collective fear happening. So it is triggering for each and every one of us individually. It's triggering parts of ourselves that are really difficult, that are really challenging. So in that discussion, for me, it is, let's use this as an opportunity to heal these parts, these fears, these traumas, these difficulties that are showing up right now, that are coming to the surface. Whereas before, we would go to work, we would be distracted with all these different things. We wouldn't have time to deal with any of that. We wouldn't have to be forced to be with our families 24/7. Couples are having a really hard time right now because there's no escape. They can't go anywhere outside of their home, and they have to face their problems, their difficulties, their differences. So for whatever it is that you're finding challenging right now, and it's different for every single person that I talk to. So you identify what are those deeper triggers that are resurfacing for you in this situation. And in those triggers, there's the biggest gift, the biggest opportunity that you can find to help you grow. So if you could look at this whole situation as really an opportunity to heal those triggers, those traumas, those wounds, those difficulties that you haven't been able to heal before, then you're really using this whole crisis for a healing purpose. And that's the paradox, is using something that seems so negative um, for growth, for healing. And we could go into this discussion a lot further, and I do break it down into different emotions and how to release different emotions and different with relationships with couples, with the relationship with yourself, with things that unresolved relationships that you've had in your life, and how those might be triggered right now. We go into neuroscience and our brains, and certain patterns that have been stuck. I'll share a lot with you about the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and how amazing he is, and tools that he can share with us and use to really help us heal from old patterns, from breaking the habit of being our old self, and helping us in a way to bring in a new self, and a self that we are proud of, a part of ourself that is who we want to be and who we want to move forward being. Because I really feel that after even all this crisis is done, and a lot of people are talking about this, that things are not going to be the same. Our life isn't going to be exactly how it was before. So there's going to be a new normal. And we can define what that new normal is. And it could be a good, positive new normal. It doesn't have to be that we've lost something that we wanted and we can't have it back. We can actually have more than we thought we could have. And so it is, again, another mental shift, another paradigm shift, another outlook shift that we need to do in order to be able to adjust to what is happening, and in order to be able to grow from what is happening, and to draw from the inner strength that we have within us, and to use that to propel us to be somebody new, and keep obviously the old parts that have been serving us, but also start letting go of the old parts that haven't been serving us. And so that is a discussion that I'm going to be continuing with you. For a lot of people, this is a challenging time, especially for those who are very empathic. And shout out to all the empaths out there that are really feeling this in a deep level, because sometimes it's not even our own fears, sometimes it's not even our own anxiety. It is feeling the energy from other people, feeling what everybody else is feeling, and then taking that on and feeling it as though it is ours. So we go a lot deeper into that discussion as well inside the program. But one quote that I wanted to share with you that I think is really interesting and cute. It says, "Stop pushing so hard on the door looking for happiness. It opens inwards." So we have been very distracted and focused on that door of happiness pushing outside of us, meaning we need to push that door and we find that happiness somewhere outside of us, whether that is with other people, with how the world is, with how our relationships are, with how our money situation is, with how our health is, whatever it is that we've been trying to find happiness somewhere else. And this pandemic is like, well, close all the doors, you can't go anywhere. You have to really open that door inward. That's the only door we can open right now that is safe. Any door we open outside is, dangerous, they tell us. But I think the symbolic meaning of it all is that we can't find happiness anywhere outside of us. We can't even go to a restaurant or to a comedy show or to a movie to find that temporary sense of happiness anymore. I mean, we could turn on the TV all day long and be watching that, but there's not going to be happiness there. It's all bad news right now. So opening the door within is the safe door to open. There's no threat there, other than really just working through some of the emotions and some of the old beliefs and the limiting beliefs and the old blocks that you are ready now to heal. And I am now starting online private sessions for whoever needs the help in that domain to help you go deeper into these aspects and to help you heal a lot deeper into all these different things. So there's a lot more in the psychological pillar. I will follow up with a lot more videos on this topic, but now I really want to move through and go into the third deeper meaning of this whole crisis, which is the spirituality pillar. Let's talk about that. Very similar emotions, very similar problems, very similar daily experiences. We have to act the same way. We all have to take the same precautions. So there's a lot of responsibility in how I impact others. If it's a spirituality that the ego is taking and is making it spiritual, then obviously it's not going to lead very effectively. It was one of the most difficult times, but I grew from it in ways that I would. So the last deeper meaning of this whole coronavirus crisis for me is that spirituality deeper meaning. And that one is a huge discussion that I will follow up with more videos, but some of the things that I wanted to share in this video is when we think about where our world was before this crisis, we were in a very, very intense, polarized state. There was a lot of division, a lot of two separate sides and duality with everything. And now, interestingly, we seem to all be having, across the globe, we seem to all be having a universal experience. We seem to all be having very similar emotions, very similar problems, very similar daily experiences. Um, when was another time in the history of the world that we are all talking about the same thing? It has, and especially the first few weeks, it was very surprising to me. Out of the hundreds of emails I get every single day, hundreds, that all of them from all kinds of different sources, from random different sources, not the same type of like all functional medicine. It was just any, from hotels to gas bill to anything you can imagine. They were all talking about the same thing. So that universal experience we are having, although it's a negative experience, again, like I've been talking about, it's also pointing us to the truth of us being really no different from each other. The differences are of the ego. The seeing others as different from us is because we see with the body's eyes, and we see all our differences. And there are differences on the physical level, on the level of the body. But the level of the body is not the only level, right? There's those deeper levels. So when we are talking about the essence of who we truly are, on that level, we are starting to really see more clearly that oneness, that concept that quantum physics has been talking about for years, decades, that spirituality has been talking about, that now we are starting to talk about oneness even in terms of the physical perspective, because we are all now being impacted by this one virus the same way. We have to act the same way. We all have to we all have to take the same precautions. We all have to follow certain rules. We all have to, take care that we don't jeopardize the health of somebody else. Even if we feel we're okay with it, well, maybe somebody else won't be okay with it. So there's a lot of responsibility in how I impact others. And the concept of oneness is one that it can be kind of vague for some people. And I know that one of my favorite mentors, Dr. Kenneth Wapnick, who I've been studying A Course in Miracles with him for years now, he was using the term sameness instead of the word oneness, because oneness sometimes can feel a little too outside of what we can understand, being in these bodies and feeling like we're so not one with one another. Whereas the concept of sameness seems a little more easy for our brains to understand. And the way Dr. Kenneth Wapnick was explaining the concept of sameness was that we are all the same on the fundamental level, because we all have an ego and we all have a right mind. We all have an ego, and that ego, when we choose the ego, when I identify with the ego, I'm going to see separation. I'm going to see through the eyes of differences. I'm going to see through the eyes of blame, through the eyes of one or the other. And when we choose to identify with the right mind, what we see is that sameness. We see that what I'm seeing in you, I also have in me. I start seeing the projections that I am putting on you or on the world or on situations that are actually reflecting something that is within me. And what we are able to start seeing, instead of blame or instead of one or the other, is we start to see that you are either expressing love, which means you are in your right mind as well, or you are expressing a call for love, which means you're in your ego. You seem to be attacking, you seem to be judging, but you are actually calling for love. And in A Course in Miracles, we talk a lot about only really having two emotions, love or fear. And it really is that simple. It really is either ego or the right mind. And so the question then comes, who do I choose to be? Who do I choose to identify with? And that's a lifetime process. It's not a one day I decide to be the right mind and then I'm good. It's a process. And the Course in Miracles has 365 lessons, one for each day of the year, because it is a process. And if you want to follow me in that journey, you can check out the program that I will be releasing soon on all the different lessons of A Course in Miracles and some other different programs on studying A Course in Miracles with you. But I will also be releasing some videos here on spirituality in general. So if you feel inspired to dive deeper into these discussions, please join me there. But going back to what is that deeper meaning of this whole crisis in terms of the spirituality concept. For a lot of us who have been in that path of spirituality for a while, we might have felt kind of alone in that path. Maybe we were part of certain groups, but it was a very individual path, a very lonely path for some people. Now it is very interesting how all these groups of people who have been doing this spiritual work, now they're really all joining together. And so what felt very lonely road before, now it's becoming a global road, a global path of spirituality. And it doesn't have to be, it's A Course in Miracles. It doesn't have to be, it is that spirituality. It doesn't have to be, it's that one. It's all now coming together because we are all talking about the same thing, whether we use the language of A Course in Miracles or the language of a different spirituality path. They all lead us to the same path, if of course it's a spirituality coming from a place of love. If it's a spirituality that the ego is taking and is making it spiritual, then obviously it's not going to lead to where we need to go. It's the ego can show up in every single thing, even inside A Course in Miracles. Many people take A Course in Miracles and interpret it through the ego perspective, and then they make it their own Course in Miracles. So that happens with all spirituality paths, but I am noticing a lot more how people who have been spiritual and have been going through this path on their own, now they can actually share this with everybody else, because now everybody seems to be opening up more on these topics and talking about these things a lot more, because we are in this collective awakening process that is happening for a lot of us. So what a beautiful experience to be having this sameness, this oneness experience, again, through crisis. But the more we can tune into the right mind instead of the ego that wants to see only the separation of it all, and the judgment and the hatred and the anger, there's another way that we can choose to look at this whole thing. And I think it is time for a lot of us to start really sitting with the whole concept of sameness and oneness and seeing what does that mean on a practical level. Because we can talk theoretical oneness and spirituality all day long, but if we don't practice it, it really is pointless. And that's one of the things I really like about A Course in Miracles, is that this is not just a theory. This is something you got to put in your daily life. This is something you got to practice. And when you refuse to practice it, when you forget to practice it, that is practicing it, because you're noticing how you don't want to practice it. You're noticing how you'd rather choose your ego than your right mind. And that is part of practicing A Course in Miracles, because you are using the right-minded ability to look at your ego and say, I'm choosing my ego, look at what I'm doing, and that's okay. I can choose again. So I think that it is a great opportunity for all of us, for those of us who have been on a spirituality path for a while, and for those of us who are now just being introduced to these concepts. I think it is a great time for all these people to really start exploring that layer a lot deeper. And it is one of the deeper meanings that I think this global crisis is showing us. So again, I will follow up with a lot more videos on this topic, but what I want to leave you with after all this longer video, I want to just leave you with a question that you can ponder yourself, and that is, after all of this situation is over, perhaps however many months later, or even if you want to think of it as like a year later, looking back, let's just say we're a year later from now, and you look back on this whole situation, what would you like to feel that you were able to grow from, that you were able to use the situation for? What would make you proud to look back at this whole situation, and how would you like to feel in terms of how you were during this crisis? And so try to think of, in a year from now, when I look back at this whole situation, what would my growth be? What would I want my growth to be? What would I want my healing to be? And in what areas? Maybe you resonated with the physical pillar, and that this is high time to start taking care of your health. Maybe you resonated with the psychological pillar and going deeper into looking into your mental patterns and your emotions and your relationships. Maybe you resonated more with the spirituality pillar. Maybe it was all three. Maybe it's something completely different that is not even mentioned in this video that you have really started to identify as your growth in other areas. So invest in that and put your focus in that, so that a year later, when you look back, you can say, I really used that time very effectively. It was one of the most difficult times, but I grew from it in ways that I would have never imagined. So that is my hope for you, and that is the journey that I will continue having with you, and to support you in that way, so that we can look back together and say, that whole experience, wow, it really helped me grow in so many different ways. So leaving you in whole wellness, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.